Welcome into our match and competition session. Just a quick introduction. Look at those two nice chaps up on screen there. Unfortunately, they weren't available, so it's just Warren and myself to do the presentation this afternoon. So I've been the Executive Manager at Bowls New South Wales and part of the sport team for a little over 18 months now, and Warren's here as our Chair of State Match Committee. So hopefully we can go through a bit of information. I'm sure within the room there's various levels of experience at club, region level, and hopefully you get something out of it along the way, some of which you probably know, others which you may know, and hopefully there's a few things that you didn't know that you can have a look at. So conditions of play we're going to kick off with, and why do they exist? So quite simply, it's an outline of competitions and how they're to be conducted and managed throughout the year, and it establishes those guidelines for everyone to follow. So whether that be for individual players, the officials at club or region level. And when completing that document each year, the match committee is looking to the following points. So standardisation, so everyone's playing the same event under the same rules across the state, that they're fair and consistent rules for each time for team and side eligibility, that the match format, scoring system, any time limits that are appropriate, they get added into the condition of play, and potentially there's a need for alignment and mirroring with what comes to us from either Bowls Australia or World Bowls. Any amendments that get made by our match committee are made for several key reasons. That may be adapting to any updates that come from those higher bodies at BA or World Bowls, feedback from any individual, a club, a region, and obviously our match committee and staff see different things throughout the course of all our events over a 12-month cycle. So we're looking at those things all the time, and that helps us, as well as member surveys that we distribute out as well. We want to enhance player experience, and that may be via new or updated formats of play, and looking at trends such as entry numbers, player demographics that are entering competitions, and of course at the bottom there to improve fairness and clarity for our competition. So one of the main things that come to us as staff members at Bowls New South Wales and as our volunteers on the match committee are what events are included. So you see there on screen all our pennant competitions, that's open, men's, women, and of course our platinum pennant competition, state championships as well as those regional qualifying for those events, all your club major championships, so singles, pairs, triples and fours, our ladies or women's state carnival, our New South Wales qualifying for the Bowls Australia indoor singles, our representative fixtures, so inter-region sides events, and our rookies, over 40s, mixed, junior, and also multi-disability or all abilities events as well. They form part of the COP, and the events that don't sit underneath that, you see there on screen, and this is often contention for members that ring and are asking and looking for help and guideline throughout the conditions of play, but unfortunately these events on screen don't form part of that. So that's things like bowling arm, that's your club gala days or your club tournaments, your minor championship or B-grade event, your handicap singles, your major minor events, consistency, mixed fours, mixed pairs, things like that, or other representative fixtures that are scheduled between regions and those junior championships as well, veterans. So all those events aren't under the COP, and there at the bottom there you see that it's the responsibility of the controlling body for that specific event to look after those conditions and entry format for those events. I'll hand over to Warren now. He's going to go through a few of our changes that were made for 24-5.
Thanks, Lee. Welcome, everyone. Yeah, just a few changes that you should be across already because these conditions have been out for a while now. But the first one, late arrivals, that was changed from 15 minutes to 30 minutes to fall in line with what's in the actual law book. Allocation for points in sectional play. We had a few instances during sectional play where a team would forfeit either halfway through the event or before the last game or something like that. So we decided that if that happens, all games in that section will be classed as a forfeit or a bye, if you like. So all other remaining players receive the same conditions as far as that forfeit or bye. And determining section winners, now that we have BowlsLink, we have no avenue to record the number of ends won. And if we did have to go back and count the number of ends, that would require getting all the scorecards and different things like that. So we've taken that out of the conditions as determining who wins. It is the last one in a list of 4 or 5, but now that's been amended to use the 2 results from the actual teams that play against each other. If it was a pennant competition and we had 2 teams equal, and they played each other twice during the year. One won 10-0, the other one won 9-1, and obviously the team that won 10-0 would go through. If the points were the same, then we'd look at the margins and shots against, and the same thing would apply for that. Restriction of player movement, for those that were in the umpires course earlier, this was touched on as well. Why was it brought in the first place? Because some of our games were far too long. So we brought the condition of play in for restricting players. It does say in the law book that if the controlling body wishes, they can adopt or adapt the restriction of player movement, what's in the law book, to suit their competition, which Bowls New South Wales did. However, with a lot of live streaming and different things now from different states, a lot of people were seeing different player movement in different areas because every state can set their own player movement, and there was a lot of players just blatantly not observing this law, and there wasn't too much being done about it, unfortunately. So it's been removed and back to basically what it was before, where there's no restriction for thirds and skips or seconds in triples. We have a new event, which is the introduction of a women's inter-region. The men have always had the senior inter-zone and the open inter-zone, so now there's a women's inter-regional as well. There'll still be the men's senior and open inter-region. The only difference being that the women will have a 12-a-side game where 3 of them players in each team have to be below the age of 60 and over the age of 60. And we know from feedback that some regions will be able to fill their side quite easily with players that are over the age of 60 and may struggle to get 3 that are under, whereas other regions would be reversed. They could pick a fairly strong team with all players under the age of 60, but they will have to select 3 that are over as well. And even with substitutes and things like that, that quota has to remain for every game. Back to you, mate.
Thanks very much. I should have mentioned earlier as well, for anyone that's in the room, we'll have an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the session, and for anyone there participating online as well, you can pop those questions into comments and we'll try and get you, if there's some time at the end of the session, to touch on your questions. So please send them through if you are watching on. So pennant gradings, obviously it's a big thing. We're close to open pennant season rolling around. For those that are club administrators watching on today, you will be going through this process now of working out where you are for open pennants and where you can be for the upcoming season. Obviously everyone wants to win and perform really well in their competitions. However, we need to have a system in place that's fair and equitable for all regions and all clubs within the state. So it works on your previous season performance. So for the 24-5, you work on your 23-24 season performance and where you have placed. You can, of course, add additional sides from last season if you've had more players come into your club. And our region match committees submit those submissions and competition format into the state 8 weeks prior to their opening round fixture, which then are reviewed by the state match committee and passed back to the regions with any potential amendments to the gradings that they've proposed. So elevating in grade, any zone winner from last year in grades 2 through 7 will be elevated up into the next grade, and that's irrespective of whether you have a side already in that grade at your club. So if you are the zone grade 4 champion, you will have a grade 3 side next year, even if you already did have a grade 3. So you'll be promoted up into that next grade. If you win a section in open pennant, grades 2 through 7, you may get elevated, and that will just be on a competition numbers balance arrangement by the state and the region to equal out those competitions and have good numbers and good competition across all grades. And of course you may request to elevate if you have an increase in players that are graded coming into your club of a higher grade. There may be a requirement for you to be able to meet the conditions to promote your club in grades because you've had that influx at the top level of your club. and it's the club's responsibility to ensure that you're selecting people in the grades that they're eligible for. It doesn't sit with your region, it doesn't sit with your state, that's their club responsibility to make sure that you're selecting players each and every game that are appropriate to the grade that you have. On the opposite side of that is regression, of course. So if you are the last place finisher at zone level, you are not automatically brought back in grade. You'll see there the word may is used, so you may get regressed back in grade if you're last place in the zone, and that's on that competition balance. And once again, if you're last place in a section, you may be regressed down in grade. Quite often you'll have zones or now regions that have 4 sections of pennant competition, and the 4 winners, only the zone winner is prepared to be elevated in grade. The other 3 section winners don't want to go up. However, all 4 of the last place sides want to go back in grade. So if you keep that model and elevate one side in that grade and regress 4, you're going to soon end up with a huge number of entries down in that bottom grade and no one coming up through the grades. And that's not fair and equitable for all those grades throughout the state. Those regression applications get reviewed by the match committee, and that's taken into consideration your club's membership list and any players that have moved in and out of your club. They're all visible now to us on BowlsLink with the transfer in and out of your club since the previous season. We can get those dates and work out who's coming in and out of club. And any member that you have within your club is considered a potential participant for Open Pennant, and therefore they will be considered amongst the grading applications that you have. So it's not possible for you to just say 3 players have indicated they're not playing this season, they're going to be away on holidays, or for whatever reason they're not participating. Those players are still considered as part of your club and available at any given time. So therefore that's not a satisfactory reason to regress sides. I'm sure everyone would have experience at some point in time over their bowling career where clubs have nominated that plenty of players are not going to be part of the season, and all of a sudden they've been regressed in grade, and come round 1, those players turn up on the green to play against your club, which is not how things should be. So we're trying to, if they are in your club and graded at your club, they are considered available, and that's how your gradings are allocated.
All right, a couple of examples for you, and if clubs and or regions follow these examples that we're about to put forward, things will move smoothly through the State Match Committee, and you'll have your pennant competitions back to you very quickly, so you can get on with publishing your draws and so forth. But Club X in 23-24 had grades 2, 5 and 7. You can see there grade 2 finished 3rd of 8. Grade 5 had no wins and was last in the zone, and Zone 7 won their section but was defeated in the zone final playoffs. So what grades are they eligible to apply for next year? 2, 6 and 7. 2 because they finished mid-table, 5 goes back to 6 because they finished last in the zone, and 7 didn't win their zone flag, so they remain in 7. Next example is Club Y, 23-24, only had the 2 grades, grade 5 and grade 6. They were last place in 1 of 4 sections in the zone, but were not the lowest in the zone, and grade 6 last place in 1 of 6 sections, and they were the lowest overall. So pretty obvious their grades for next year would be 5 and 7. Next example, a bit trickier. You want to talk about this one, or I can still go?
So this is a situation where clubs will have multiple sides competing in the same grade. So you see there the grade 2 side were a mid-table finisher. Grade 3, the club had 2 sides in the grade 3 competition, one of which won the zone and the other one was mid-table in their section. Grade 6 was last place in their zone but not the lowest overall points, and grade 7 won. However, they've since indicated from last season that they have had 5 players transferred out of the club. That was 1 out of each of those 5 sides. And a further 6 of their lower grade players have said we're not playing pennants in the upcoming season, so the club has decided they can only field 4 teams. So where will they sit for next season? So the grade 2, the highest side there, they will be retained in 2s. The grade 3 zone winning team moves up also into grade 2. The other grade 3 side that were mid-table remain as they are, and the grade 6 side stays there which is also going to form part of players that have come up from the winning zone pennant grade 7 side, and the 5th side that they've had to reduce is their lower side, which of course there was grade number 7. And finally, example number 4, my club's got 4 sides, grade 4, 5, 6 and 7. We went away, we won the zone pennant. However, when we went away, we got flogged in all 3 games by 30 shots. Our grade 5 side was lowest in the whole zone, and our grade 6 and 7 won about half our games and finished midway through the table. So our grade 4 side, and unfortunately, despite you being beaten in your 3 games at state finals, you were too good for all the other teams in your area, so you are going up into grade 3 to create that fairness across the whole state. Your grade 5, which ran last, however, is able to be regressed, and you maintain your 6 and 7 from the previous season. So it gives you a bit of an indication of what gets looked at. Season performance, player movement in and out is the clear way of the state match committee having that opportunity to determine those gradings for all clubs across all regions across the whole state.
One of the other changes to the conditions of play is that at state level now, all pennant finals from grades 1 to 7 will have 16 sides attending and offering the place, if they haven't won through. And as it says there, should a region not have a winner in any grade, the State Match Committee will offer the additional places. How do we do that? Well, we do that by the example down the bottom there, and that would go to the region that has the greatest percentage of clubs in that grade based on the number of clubs they have overall in their region. So in this example, it was a grade 3. We need to fill another spot in grade 3. Region X has 34 clubs, and they have 9 in grade 3, which is 26%, 26.5%, where Region Y has 26 clubs, but they have 10 grade 3 sides. So they're the higher percentage of the 3 regions that's there, so that extra side would be offered to Region Y. How does this come about? Well, we do have some regions that don't have particular grades. We've got a couple that don't have a grade 1 side, and we also have a number of regions that play a multi-grade competition, and should the highest club not win through in that multi-grade competition, they become ineligible to attend the state finals. So that would be an extra spot that would be offered to the region based on the percentages of sides in that particular grade. Eligibility for post-sectional, we've tidied this up a bit, made it easier for clubs. A lot of the time we would get application for waivers, and for players that hadn't met the 50% matches criteria throughout the season, and there wasn't too many that we declined. The only ones we declined were for players that weren't graded appropriately. So now with the men's pennant, you only have to have a grade that's eligible to play in that division, regardless of whether you played the season or not. However, with the men, if you were using 2 players from a higher grade playing back a division, they do have to play at least 50% of games to be eligible for post-sectional. Any other player in the men is eligible based on their grading. The women are the same. If a woman is graded accordingly for each division, then she is eligible to play regardless of the number of matches that she played throughout the year. You might have someone that's been away on holidays and hadn't played any matches at all, and come time for the finals, you have a couple of women that are unavailable, and the only people you have would be the woman that's been away on holidays. If she's graded accordingly, then she is eligible to play in the women's pennant finals. Same with the Open, same rule applies. If you get graded during the season by playing 1 less than 50% of matches in the threshold, then you become eligible to play in that grade or higher. However, if you don't meet the threshold number of matches, but you do have a previous season grading in that particular grade or lower, then you are eligible to play also in post-sectional play, either at region or state.
Thanks, Warren, and I think this slide may have come up once again for those that were part of the umpire session earlier on this morning. So often there may be occurrences where a side is one player short in pennant competition, so you may only have 7 of 8 ladies or 11 of 12 in men or open competition, and that may be prior to the start of the match or during the match due to sickness or ill health. So it used to be that your side would still match up and play 8 bowls against 8 bowls, with 2 of those players getting 3 bowls each. That has now been amended. So each player continues just to use the 2 bowls that they would normally get, and the side that has the 3 players plays without a second. So they still have a lead, a third and a skip, and to balance it out, the opposition side, so the one that still has the 4 players, they play consecutive bowls when the other team would have their second missing. So there's no recalculation of shots down the bottom there. We've put that in bold and highlighted that one. There's no recalculation at the end of the game. You play all the way through, and there is provisions of what you can do there if a person becomes available and they can jump back in at the completion of one of the ends in progress. So important, that happens at time to time, and it's misunderstood widely within our community. So we just wanted to really highlight this today, that you keep the 2 bowls per player and you play without a second if you're short, and your score at the end of the game is your score. There's no adjustment to that. So let's go back to that previous slide. Up the top there in red, you see the domestic regulation and the page number that it sits on. So that's where that sits in the law book. There is slightly different version written in the front of the law book, but this is a domestic regulation that Bowls Australia has, and that's the version that we've adopted. So format of play for all championships. There's been various changes over the last 10 years or so. So once again, just need to point these out. Some of you in the room or watching online will already be fully across this, but all singles matches are first to 25. In the case that you're playing sectional play, any shots in excess of 25 do not count to your score. So if you are on 24 shots and you get a 3 to win the game, you are recorded with 25, not 27. And those games can be conducted, as all are, throughout a combination of sectional play and knockout, or you can play knockout throughout the entire competition. Our pairs formats for the state men, the state women and the senior men, they're 2 by 2 and repeat over 21 ends, or the shorter format there of 14 ends if you are using the 3 games of sectional play. Slight variation for the open reserve, that's still the 2 by 2 and repeat, but only over 18 ends, or 3 12-end matches in sectional. And the senior women have adopted the 3 by 3 bowl format over 21 ends, and then the reduction there in sectional play back to 14 ends as well. So they're the different variations of the pairs competition. Similarly in triples and fours, there's some variations. State men, women and senior men in the triples, still the 2 bowls per player, but of 25 ends a game, with the reduction there to 17 if you're using the sectional play. Our senior women and open reserve play 21 end matches with a slightly reduced number of sectional ends. In fours, much the same, the state men, women and senior men, 21 end games, and our senior women and open reserve are playing 18 end matches at the moment. So over the last number of years, our finishing times at state championship events, where we see all of these games as a state body, we've been looking at finishing times, working out when games are coming to a conclusion, and that's helped sort of form decisions about the reduction of ends. We're seeing situations at the moment where some formats are taking a little longer than others, so we'll continue to review and amend if required. So that's an ongoing process. We know at region and club level you run different competitions and you want them to try and manage to finish at similar times, so hence that slight reduction of ends and different formats. And then going back to that previous slide with our senior women's pairs, it was a big push to move to that 3 bowl format to eliminate some of the walking that occurs during games, especially for those that were required to play more than 1 game in the day. So that has gone to the 3 by 3 format for those senior women's events. So I'll go back 1 slide there. Our champion of champions. So how do we get through to that competition? So we have the 4 events, so the men's singles and pairs, and also a women's singles and pairs competition, and that's your current club champion. But please do note there that it is required to play all matches within the current bowling season. So the season that we're in at the moment, that started on 1 July 2024. So all of those matches at your club needed to be played within that boundary. So from 1 July 2024 and onwards. and they are your eligible champions for that year. Any clubs found to have played games that wish to enter champion events that have played outside those times, they will be unable to compete. You can still play events at different times of the year. Some have still a calendar year championship schedule at your club, which you can maintain. However, for those champion events, you just need to ensure that the right team is making their way through to that next level. And your current champions can continue to play on at champions level, even if they have moved away from your club, as long as they're still registered as an affiliated member of a club that sits as part of Bowls New South Wales. So how do I qualify? So if my club conducts single gender championships, that's nice and easy to work out. If I'm the men's singles champion, I go to the men's champion singles, and all the way through those top 4 events, that's pretty self-explanatory. Women's pairs champions at club, go to the women's champion pairs. If my club only conducts open gender championships, however, the singles winner of that event goes to the respective gender in the champions. So if you have an open singles and a female winner, that lady will be able to participate in the women's champion singles, and obviously vice versa if you have a male champion. However, if you have a mixed gender team in your open pairs championship, they unfortunately cannot participate in champions because there is no event that suits that winning side, and winning pairs teams of the same gender can go into their respective champion pairs as well, whether that be 2 men or 2 women. If your club only has the one single gender event and an open event, so if you're a men's club, for example, that has a men's singles and an open singles competition, it's just the single gender champion. So just the winner of the men's singles in that scenario could go on and compete in champion singles. And that open gender champion would only be eligible if it was a different gender to that single gender winner. It's very wordy. All of these things are part of the conditions of play, and if you're confused at club level and want any information, you can contact Andrew or myself at the Bowls New South Wales office, and we can help you out along the way with any of those wording issues that you may be unsure about.
So currently the State Match Committee is reviewing all the events and looking at the new conditions of play, which you see down the bottom there. We hope to have to everyone by January 25. We put our recommendations to the board for approval, and once they've been approved, we hope we can get them conditions of play out to everyone so they can get their head around them before the new season starts on July 1. We're also looking at the calendar to try and get that out when, as soon as we can as well. The difficulties we do have with the calendar is there's a lot of moving parts, and people would know that Bowls Australia have their events, of which is plotted on the calendar, and then Bowls New South Wales will put their events around it, followed by the regions putting their events, and then the clubs have to fit in their club championships around all them events. It does get difficult at times, and an example will be with the Nationals. The Nationals were played in October this year, however they're getting moved to November next year, so that means that will require a bit of juggling of events with Bowls New South Wales. We'll have to move some that will clash with the new dates for the Nationals. Also, Easter's at a different time every year, so we've got to be aware of that, and things like Anzac Day that moves around, and Australia Day and different things like that where they fall on the weekend as well. We're wary of putting events up against them traditional holidays as well. So again, we try and get that out, and hopefully to have that out by the end of December. Some of the other key changes to the conditions of play and season calendar: the notification of men and women's pennants was moved earlier this season to late January. So quite a few of them are finished, and some are just underway now. Champion singles of pairs, them two events have been separated a little bit for the people that qualify in both, so they can go to one, go back, have a bit of a break and attend the next one. The region committees were asked to schedule spare and washout days, so everyone's aware of when events were going to be played if they were interrupted. And Just a reminder that since the initial release of the platinum dates, the platinum date for the final has been moved so it doesn't clash with the open pennant grade 1 to 7 state finals.
So moving across to a couple of recent success stories. So Warren just touched on platinum pennant. So season 1, that was the first time that format has taken place in New South Wales. It was set up to be the premier interclub competition throughout the whole world, and it's that opportunity for those top tier clubs and players to play at a high level against those other top clubs around the state. The creation of this competition also allowed the removal of marquee players from open pennant grade 1 to 7. So those marquees were only allowed in platinum, and that meant that all the clubs around the state that were playing grade 1 to 7 were forced to use their own club members. They didn't have access to marquees across those grades. And the main reason for the platinum, or one of the main reasons, was to foster that growth in grade 1. So that had been a competition that it was slowly reducing in numbers. It was being predominantly played across only 6 or 7 regions of the state in that grade 1 pennant competition. So this allowance of those really high profile premier clubs around the state to go into a different competition then brought forward the opportunity for some of those other clubs that were sitting in grade 2 and beyond to want to push forward to try and be in grade 1. And you see there at the bottom we had 12 additional clubs participate in the grade 1 pennant competition last season, which is things moving in the right direction, as well as giving those players on screen, like the team there from Cabramatta that won our platinum pennant competition, the opportunity to play at that high level as well. So it's working for that high level and then for those club bowlers below it. Some of the things that have happened recently on our event entries from our mass participation events, our over 40s pairs, you can see there we had a little over 300 sides enter in 24-25. That's 28% increase from what we had last season, and over 50% from the season before that. So things are moving in the right direction with those entry numbers in that event. The mixed pairs shocked us this year. We've really boosted those numbers up, so that's a credit to everyone for jumping on board and playing in that event. And I know many competitors across the state are looking forward to that competition kicking off tomorrow in your various regions for that qualifying. And now the opportunity to go through to a state title and potentially a national title is up for grabs. So those entries went up 50% from the previous year, so that's a huge boost in numbers. So we're thankful for everyone for promoting that event and getting involved at club level and participating. Our Women's State Carnival, which is a massive participation event on our calendar, almost 1,000 ladies heading to State Carnival, that was increased by nearly 250 women. So we went from 170 sides last year to 232 that went up to Foster a few months ago, and the surrounding clubs to our host Foster for that final. So that's a massive win and increase in those entry numbers. And then our rookies events, we're starting to see female participation increase in those. So over 40% increase in female entries from last season to this season in our rookies competition. So it's great to see that we're getting those newer females that are coming into the sport that are wanting to jump in and get involved in those rookies competitions. So there are a few of our recent success stories, and I'll get Warren to talk about some of the things that are happening in the future and what's being looked at.
So next on the agenda for the match committee is things to look at as the consolidation of events on the calendar. What events can be held on the same dates? Do we have different age events that we can hold simultaneously across the same weekend or wherever they're played? Can we put events on while the nationals are on, so people that aren't involved in the nationals may be able to play in an event that we have a weekend there? Format review, the number of ends playing per matches, are they too long, are they too short? Do we need to mirror what happens when people go on to the next level? Should we be playing under the same conditions as they do from the start of the competition? Open pennant, review the number of grades. Currently we have 7, well actually 8 if you count platinum, so is this sustainable? Should we reduce the number of grades? Men and women's pennant competition. Do we need these? Do we need both? Should we alter the format? Should it only be region only and no state finals? That'd be the same with open pennant, so all these things need to review. Shifting match start times to assist clubs. We have a number of events now when some can't go to certain clubs because they don't open till later in the morning. Greenkeepers are finding it difficult to prepare greens early in the morning, especially during the winter months, and travel for players, getting them to the venue and home safely and in daylight hours. So it may be a consideration there where shorter matches may be able to fix that. Champion of champion formats, do we leave it as is where qualification is straight to the state, or do we go through back to the region? Very split one, this one. The women would be aware that they've always had their straight to the state qualification, where the men have always played region first and then to state. And as I said, it's various different opinions on that. And do we need any new events to be added? Should we have a shorter, sharper version of the game? How do we increase participation, or should any of the events be removed from the calendar? So Match Committee very busy in reviewing all these, and this is where we rely on feedback and surveys and things like that. So we appreciate the people who do take the time and submit feedback for any or all of our events. And I can guarantee it all gets taken into consideration, and we look forward to working with our members and hopefully improving our game as we go forward.
Further to that point on any variations, so from a staffing point of view, myself and Andrew as part of the sport team, we'll make some notes that are always considered. Our state match committee, which Warren chairs, and we have 5 other fantastic people that sit on that match committee. So there's 3 women and 3 men. So we've got that gender split, so they're understanding the different formats of the game across both the men's and women's competitions. So we all provide feedback in, and that goes to our board for consideration. And as Warren mentioned, those survey results or any feedback that we get is considered. So whilst always the percentage numbers or the survey results may not be fully published each and every time, they are the basis of why decisions are altered. So when presenting to the board, we can't just say we think we need to change this event because we think it's right. We need to provide the evidence behind that as well. So that comes from all the feedback that we may get, as well as that participation numbers, our survey data. That all sits with the board, and then we can provide clear and accurate evidence as to why there could be a potential change in format, or why events should be added or potentially even removed or changed in the calendar. So that's the process that gets underway there. We've got a bit of time left, so happy to open up for any questions. I think I've got a hand up the back, must be an online question.
We do indeed have an online question. The question was, Champ of Champs allows for players moving clubs to still compete. Does this also apply to state championships?
Yes, it does. So those players can continue on to compete for the club that they won the event at prior to state championships. So yeah, exactly the same format that applies for Champion of Champions applies to the state championships as well. So as long as they maintain that membership with a Bowls New South Wales affiliated club, they can continue on and progress through to state championships if they've had to relocate after they've won the qualifying. Anyone present in the room want to ask any questions this afternoon? Yes, ma'am. We'll get you to use the microphone just so we can capture everyone online can hear as well.
In our region, in grade 1, we only had 1 section. And when it came to playoffs for the other grades, they made 1 play 2. Is that a direction from state, or was that made up?
Just for clarification, are you meaning that at your pennant playoff stage,
yes,
it wasn't first past the post?
No,
it
wasn't first past the post. Grade 1 and grade 2 only had 1 section. And at the playoffs, grade 3 and 4 played a round robin because there was, I think, 3 sections, but grade 1 and 2 were made to play off 1 versus 2.
Yeah, currently that sits with the regions, so they provide their finals or full competition format under their pennant submission, and that's for men's, women's and open pennant, so they provide that competition format. At this point in time, it's been left with the regions to determine what the best way to conduct any finals or first past the post scenario. I'm not sure at this stage that it's been discussed to have a uniform method across the state, just for the various section numbers and how that may work. But yeah, certainly, obviously, with Warren and other match committee members here today, we can speak about that and whether that's a uniform process that gets mandated. It's just, I guess, widely different in different parts of the state, where some may want a finals format because that generates revenue through their region via club sponsorship, versus having that opportunity just to play and first past the post is the winner. So there's pros and cons, I guess, on both sides of the fence, and at this stage it hasn't been mandated at state. It's been left with the regions to decide what suits them best.
Okay, thank you. Now, my other one is just a suggestion. Where it mentions about playing one player short in the pennant, would it be worthwhile to mention about who keeps the scorecard? Because that would be the first thing that they would say. If our second isn't here, who's going to keep the scorecard?
Absolutely, and we conducted this session in another room earlier on today and discovered that we'll send that information out to everyone prior to the upcoming Open Pennant season, probably in early 2025, just before that competition starts, just so everyone's fully aware of what happened. I certainly don't sit on our umpires committee, but I would assume the best point of call would be for someone at the same end as the opposition second, i.e. probably the third of the opposing team, to carry on that duty. But yeah, certainly it's worth noting, absolutely. Was there any other questions, I'm not sure, from the team online or even anyone else in the room that'd like to ask anything? Any burning questions at your club, pennant competition, the formats of the game, anything that you've been thinking about? Thanks, Alan.
Just one. In our region, we had 2 grade 2s and 2 grade 3s playing in the same thing because of lack of numbers and travelling. If one of the grade 2 teams doesn't win at all, do they automatically regressed?
They'll be considered because their last place in the zone is not guaranteed to be regressed. But yeah, absolutely, they would have a stronger case than most for regression by falling behind teams that were in a lower grade to them.
Still write the letter just in case.
I missed that.
Still write the letter to...
Absolutely, yeah. So
yeah, okay.
Put in that submission via your club to the region, and then the region will provide that explanation. But that would, to me, seem a strong case to regress if they've fallen behind teams that were in a lower grade to them.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Now's the opportunity. I'm looking at the team online there. I'm not sure there's anything coming from our viewers there. That being the case, thanks very much for joining us this afternoon for this match and competition session. I know it's a huge part of why everyone plays the sport, to understand what the rules are and then to administer them both locally and then through to state level. So thanks for jumping in this afternoon. As always, as Bowls New South Wales, sorry, I do have a question up the back. Thanks, Dave.
Can Bowls New South Wales put out a calendar for all regions to follow, just to give the clubs a chance to work on their calendars and tournaments to maximise potential entries from other clubs?
That's certainly been looked at in previous seasons. I guess some of the difficulties may be in local conditions or traditional scheduling of events within different regions. There may have always been certain events that fall in and around Anzac or other holiday events and tournaments that have fallen in that suited those local areas, but the main one is probably climate. I guess we have various huge differences across the state in that sense, so trying to set a one-size-fits-all becomes problematic. I know in the metro area they at different times had produced a calendar that would suit all of those former zones in the metro region, and that seemed to work well for a few of those. So as a state level, I think it's going to be tricky to get a one-size-fits-all. But yeah, there may be further encouragement down the track to consolidate areas a bit closer together than what there has been in the past. So from Bowls New South Wales' point of view, as I was saying, please continue to send in feedback, whether it's not today, it can be at any stage via our office. There's an inquiries button on our website that you can send things through, and that'll come through to our team. Our sport team in the office, so we had Andrew Lynn and myself in the sport team. We're about to appoint a new starter in 𝐿𝐿, so we'll have 3 full-time members in the office that can answer questions at any stage. that you may have, and then Warren and his team as the state match committee is providing information to assist them with what they need to do. So please continue to send in feedback, respond to those surveys as they come in. It's quite simply, if you don't provide us that feedback, we can't make any changes. So thanks very much once again for attending our session today, and I hope you took a little bit out of it. Thanks very much.